So I want to welcome everybody and thank you for being here today. We're excited to have this session of the second annual Supplemental Instruction Symposium. We did have a symposium last year around this time, which happened to take place at the Chancellor's office, and we had about 80 people attend in person and about 20 online. This year, for various reasons, we decided to make this an online symposium and have a panel of presenters and also a keynote presentation. And we'll be making the slides and recordings available to you, and we'll let you know how toward the end of the session. I think you'll find this a very informative session, a lot of great expertise within our system as far as supplemental instruction, and then also you'll hear from our keynote as well. I'm Brett Christie, and I coordinate our CSU SI community that we've had since 2015, although we've certainly had people at campuses doing SI for 10 years or longer in some cases. Supplemental instruction, or you'll hear SI more and more today, was a significant part of our course redesign with technology program as well, which took place from 2013 until currently, and that was one of our strongest proven practices, if you will, as far as fixing or remediating bottleneck courses, increasing course completion rates and student success. So we've had a lot of success throughout that effort in parallel. We know that there's been more and more interest in SI as this community has built, and also as there has been more focus on student success. And we have a lot of strong data to share with you through these campuses and through their models of implementation and outcomes. So we're very excited about that. I'm going to go ahead and advance forward with a few introductory framing slides, and then we'll turn it over to our keynote, who I'll introduce in just a moment. So we'll give you context regarding supplemental instruction. Some of you on the session today are certainly well aware of what supplemental instruction is, and some very well of how to implement and manage such programs. You'll hear from our International Center for SI at UMKC through our keynote in a moment here. And so many of our campuses are connected through that International Center and the efforts, and those are the folks who founded supplemental instruction. You'll hear more about that. I mentioned our community that we have that continues to grow and works together, and I'll talk about that process a little bit later as an opportunity for those who haven't participated. We'll feature highlights from a few of our standout SI programs. We've got several. We had to pick just a few for today. We've got some great ones. They'll talk about their implementation, their outcomes, and specifically student success measures. And then I'll present opportunities for continued engagement beyond today's symposium, how you can receive support, and how you can continue to develop your programs. You all received the agenda as part of the announcement and registration, so I won't spend much time here other than to just kind of give you a sense of the flow. So after we get into the keynote for a few minutes and go through that for about 20 minutes, we'll then take a transition and we'll go to a presentation from Fresno State University. And Fresno is going to focus heavily on their evidence and their data that they have on student success, which is quite compelling. We chose to do that second because we realized some people may only be able to attend during the lunch hour and might be attending the rest maybe after the fact by accessing the recordings. So we really wanted to have that evidence, that hook for how powerful SI can be during that first hour. Then we're going to follow it up with what is SI and how does it work? How do you get those results? And that's going to be from our Fullerton team, and that's from 1 to 1:30. And then from 1:30 to 2, we're going to focus on institutional relationships and data-driven decision-making through SI, and that's going to be our San Bernardino team. Those three campus-based presentations are going to be about 20 minutes, and we want about 5 minutes of Q&A, and we'll talk about how to do that as well. And then at the end of each of the campus presentations, I'll have an announcement or sort of a reveal of some new things that we have coming related to SI. So that's going to be our flow for the presentation for today. And just to give you a snapshot of who's participating, we have 140 people who registered. Again, we will have some campuses who are participating in groups, and so you won't see all of the individual participants on the list during the live session. And of course, some people who may just have changed plans and they're going to access things later. But we have well over 100 people participating today, which is phenomenal. You can see that Humboldt is our standout winner, and Humboldt is made for Zoom. What can I say? Humboldt and Chico kind of went back and forth for the high number over the last 24 hours, and Humboldt eked out again at the last minute. So congratulations, I should have some sort of prize there. But we do have all 23 campuses represented, as well as a handful of folks from the Chancellor's office participating. So I wanted to go ahead and go with a quick poll here. And what I need to do is go ahead and do the poll implementation. That'll take me just a moment to go ahead and put that up there. I want to find out what participant types we have here today. So for attendees and for panelists, please go ahead and give us your response briefly. We'll let this run for maybe 30 seconds, and then I'll go ahead and push the results out so everybody can see. And it looks like we're getting a little over half as faculty. I'll let this keep running, and then you'll see the results in a moment. About 3/4 have voted. Excellent. And I see some people have used the raise hand tool, instead use the polling tool. And still getting a few votes. Let's go ahead and pause there. I'm at about 85%. I think that's good representation, and I'll share those results with you. So winner, if you will, we have faculty at 45%, we have staff at 39%, and administration at 17%. Great. Thank you for letting us know. That helps us. Okay, one brief transition again. And you should be seeing full screen slides again, and I'm going to go ahead and advance. So this is just a quick snapshot of where we are with SI and the CSU, and I sent a survey to the SI coordinators across all the campuses in February. We asked for their feedback, self-report as far as SI at their campus, and we got 20 campuses responding. I'll let you kind of look at the pie graph there as far as level of following the UMKC model that you'll hear more of today, close to that model or elements of that model. We didn't get any in the green, which is good. Those could be the 3 campuses that didn't respond. It's hard to tell, but this is just a quick snapshot. But what I kind of zero in on with this graphic down at the bottom with the table is that 45,000 students in SI courses. That's a large number, but as those of you know who know the size of our system, we have about 479,000 students. So that's roughly 10% of students are in SI courses. Once you see the impact that SI is having through these sessions today, I think you would probably agree that those other 90% of students are a great potential for growth in our program and student success. And we certainly don't think that every course should have SI and every student needs to go to SI, but there's quite a bit of potential left with that other 90,000. All right, and as I mentioned at the outset, we're going to be using chat for questions and comments for participants. Please use that freely and openly throughout the session. The Q&A sessions that we have are very brief, so you want to actually go ahead and use this chat throughout, and then we'll try and answer some questions in real time. We actually have a couple people planted in there to do that, specifically with their SI expertise, but then we'll also be propping up some of your questions to the presenters specifically during Q&A. So look for chat in the control panel down toward the bottom. It could be popped up there, or it could be under the More button, and then you'll see chat and you'll be able to select that. All right, and finally, I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Julie Collins. Since September, she's served as the Director of Academic Support and Mentoring at UMKC Kansas City, University of Missouri, Kansas City, excuse me, and she's Executive Director of the International Center for Supplemental Instruction at UMKC. She's a lifelong educator, has a wide range of experiences related to student success programs at many different levels. Dr. Collins earned her MA in Educational Research and Psychology at UMKC and her Doctorate of Education in Educational Administration at the University of Kansas. Most recently, she served as the Director of Regional Professional Development Center within UMKC's School of Education. So all that sounds great from afar, and who's this stranger? We actually have many of our people who are present today who got to see Dr. Collins present as the keynote for the Inland Empire Supplemental Instruction Conference this past fall. And based on that experience and for other reasons, we invited Dr. Collins to be our keynote speaker today, and she graciously accepted. So we're excited to welcome Dr. Collins, and I'll turn it over to her at this time.
Well, I don't think anyone should ever listen to their biography before they speak. I don't know that I can live up to that. But thank you, Brett, and thanks to everyone who organized this. I think predominantly Brett and team. This is very smoothly organized. It's a pleasure to just be a part of this, and I really appreciate the opportunity. So a little bit of, hopefully this will go smoothly. So I'm to tell Brett when it's time for the next slide. So I think it's time for the next slide. There you go. And so what Brett invited me to talk a little bit about today to get us started is SI as an enduring practice. I did actually consider maybe using the ghosts of past, present, and future, but it's not the right season. So just as I was thinking through what would make some cohesive conversation to get started, I thought SI past, SI present, and SI future. So we'll move forward and I'll address those things as we go. You can go to the next slide, sorry. So I think we're missing something, Brett. There's an origin slide. Yeah, backing up. There we go. So I call this the kind of the legend of SI, how SI came to be. And those of you who have received training from us, you're probably just as familiar with this story as I am. But the legend, as it goes, and is true, is that Deanna Martin in 1973, as a graduate student in the School of Education, was approached by our provost at that time. And the problem that Deanna was charged to solve for, or to try to discover a solution for, is that the University of Missouri had been, or UMKC had not been part of the larger U of M system, had been a Kansas City-based university that was a private university, and definitely was known, and we still are known, for our professional health science programs. We have a medical program, dental program, pharmacy, and so on. And so moving from a private institution, some years prior to this 1973, I had moved to a public institution. And so enrollment started to change a little bit. And as a result, without changes in instruction, changes in support mechanisms, what the university began to experience was that students were not being as successful. And there began to be attrition and problems with, of course, retaining students at high levels. Not wanting to sacrifice anything to do with the quality of education, so keeping those high standards. We don't want medical professionals out in the world not able to do their craft. The provost approached Deanna Martin as a graduate student and said, here's the problem I need you to try to solve for. And by the way, as most of us have experienced, very little budget was to come with this solution. Deanna Martin was provided $7,000, which we say is about $30,000 in today's dollars to solve for this. So with her education background, what Deanna Martin created, and certainly has evolved since then, but I've listed some 4 tenets there, and I think everybody here probably knows these, but student facilitated study sessions led by a peer, and that peer has had demonstrated success in that course, and is retaking the course to help lead those sessions with their peers. SI is intended to target historically difficult courses, so courses that do have low mean GPAs, courses that have high DFW rates. So these are your really challenging courses, and certainly that fit the model at that time because it was predominantly those health science courses, which we still find are extremely difficult and challenging. It was designed to elicit a high student-to-student engagement. So really one of the keys that Deanna Martin capitalized on is the fact that students needed, in order to develop understanding, deep understanding, which is the next bullet there, they needed to talk about the content with each other, not listen again to a professor or to a teaching assistant tell them again what they didn't understand perhaps the first time or didn't understand deeply. So those are some tenets that Deanna Martin created in 1973. I wasn't able to find the exact date at this point, but in the early 1980s, at UMKC, the International Center for Supplemental Instruction was established, and Deanna Martin served as the first executive director of that center. You can go to the next slide. So thinking about the impact, obviously those of you who are working with SI, hopefully you are experiencing the same results that we see. And even at that time, starting in 1973, moving forward to 1992, the U.S. Department of Education became involved to examine SI as a high impact practice. I don't exactly have the statistics, but I'm pretty certain that the U.S. Department of Education then and now does not hand out this high impact practice honor without really having validated the construct. And so the validation came in 3 claims. First of all, that students participating in SI within those high-risk courses earn higher mean final course grades. Secondly, that even with no regard to ethnicity and prior academic achievement, students who participated within those within the intervention succeeded a higher rate. In other words, they withdraw or have a lower percentage of failure than other students who do not participate in SI. And finally, something that's on our minds for everyone right now in higher education is that students who participate in SI persist at higher rates. They re-enroll and graduate at higher rates. So some would say, well, that's wonderful, from 1973 when it was first created, and then in 1992 it was validated. And so is it still relevant today? And the answer is yes. Dawson and several others did a review of literature study in 2014 was the publication date for that study. And 29 studies were included in that review of literature. And I think I would encourage everyone to just take a look at that Dawson research. But one of the key points that I wanted to bring up today, we hear a lot about self-selection bias with SI, that students who already would have been successful because they're volunteering, it's a voluntary option for them. So if they are volunteering to come to this opportunity, of course, that's already your highly motivated students who may already have high academic performance. And so I wanted to just bring out this quote from the Dawson article. Where studies did seek to account for these factors, motivation and or academic ability, it was established that if there were any effect at all, SI was the more important of the 2 variables in explaining the enhanced achievement of SI participants. So again, even accounting for motivation, academic ability, SI was validated again. So those 3 claims of the Department of Education, Dawson served to again validate through this review of literature. Pretty important research in the SI world. So in terms of more impact studies, so there are literally hundreds. It would be quite boring and tedious for me to try to cite all of the literature related to the effectiveness of SI. And in fact, many of you in this conference already probably have, in some regard, you have greater or more specialized knowledge of that research. I just wanted to point out a key resource for all of us. David Arendale has done a tremendous job over the years and still continues to keep up a peer learning bibliography. And so I've just included that link for everyone's reference. But I think where I'd really like to make a point with today's group is that our campus-specific research is just as critical. It is highly critical to furthering the knowledge, the body of knowledge, to validating the claims, to finding nuances. I think it's our campus research that will really move us forward as we continue to forge along. And this one has multi-clicks, Brett, so if you'll bear with me, so click again. So recently at UMKC, and this is not unlike, I know that there are studies going on everywhere, and I applaud you for continuing that research and have read many of those recently. A recent example from our campus, we took the last 3 semesters of supplemental instruction data comparatively with students, and go ahead and click the next one if you don't mind, Brett. Thank you, that'll bring in the content. So this was an impact study that we have some particular software that we've purchased that can replicate and do this propensity score matching of like students who are in the treatment or participating in this case in SI compared to those who are not participating in SI. I don't think that part is so revolutionary. What is different about the software that we're able to use is that it is able to use the predicted retention of the students within the comparison, so that you're actually comparing a student's trajectory like to like. So same students with, think about it this way, same students, it's not same students, but students with very like demographics in every way possible that you can think of, ethnicity, prior experience, all of those things that would be part of the academic record and records that we have about those students. In addition to that, we're able to say this student has this likelihood of, based on all of these, their prediction of graduation has this propensity score. We're comparing it to a student who's like. And so we're really able to get at the intervention itself, not the student, and not that self-bias or that self-selection bias that we're talking about. Bottom line, you can see from the box that first flew in there, with the software that we were able to do this with, we had, when I thought I had the number of pairs, oh, it does tell you the number of pairs matched. So we analyzed 1,276 pairs of students, and we were able to demonstrate that there was over a 9% lift in persistence. So whereas the trajectory might have been that they were, 70% likely to graduate, with SI as the intervention, with 4 or more sessions. And by the way, that's not 4 or more sessions within a course. It is 4 or more sessions within a semester, which I would never have even advised that we research it that way. But the person who plugged in the numbers, yes, it is the intervention, not just even within a course, but overall 4 or more sessions within a semester. We are seeing a 9% lift in persistence. And that effect is even greater for students of color, Black and African-American students who were, again, that propensity matching, had a 15.82% lift, and first-time freshmen a 14.6% lift. So we already knew SI was fantastic. We have lots of data, lots of collected data, DFW rates, and so on. But when we could see it in this way, it is going to make a difference in our campus, and I welcome you to use this research and to do similar research. And I'm glad to talk about the program that we used and all of that at some other point in time, perhaps at the conference, as a matter of fact. So I just wanted to talk about that campus research from our perspective, something we've done recently, and to encourage all of you to just keep plugging away with this very valuable research that you're doing on your own campuses. And we can go ahead to the next. Thank you. So, with all that said, that's probably my most exciting reveal. I love that Brett uses the word reveal when he's talking about something new that he wants to share. But we know SI has a scalability effect. It has an impact. It's accessible to all students, regularly scheduled outside of class, so that it does provide that opportunity for students to build that into their schedules, at least on most of our campuses. An emphasis on the training and coaching of leaders' facilitation skills, and we're starting to see more research about all the benefits to SI leaders as they take those skills into their professional lives. That emphasis on effective planning. Planning is just so critical, and how do we help build that on the front end so that the leaders can be successful because they're well trained and they know those facilitation skills. And then, we're seeing proven results across organizational types. Participants in our trainings often ask, are you seeing differences in community colleges versus four-year institutions? SI is effective everywhere. We have just a ton of data that would show us that, and I'm sure more studies coming out every day to show the impact. In fact, in some cases, more impactful at two-year community college type institutions, and across organizational sizes and varying student populations. So proven results, again, across different course types. We have one outlier within our training data set, and it's computer science. Computer science, at the time of our data set, which ended in 2015, we're actually working on a new data set at this time. Computer science was the only course that did not show as dramatic a change in DFW, but did show a change in overall mean GPA. So that's an anomaly, but across the board, when SI is done well, results will happen. The International Center, just a few moments to just plug us. I think I'm in enough blue. You kind of know our colors here. That I didn't realize with blue background. I'm a little blue here. But yes, we're at the International Center here at UMKC. We do have the model for implementation. Many of you may have already been trained. I know we've provided training well before my time, of course, but provided a lot of training to many of you who are on this call today, and we'd welcome you back. We'd welcome your new colleagues who might be new to SI to either come to our training here in Kansas City And we do have some on-site things. I think Brett's going to talk about that. I will not steal his thunder. We provide faculty awareness training. We can train SI leaders on site if that's something that you would need us to do. We do have some materials as well. I'm not going to do a whole sales pitch, but just go to our website and you can find out, or call us and find out what materials that we can offer you as well. And then we do have a data collection model that and a process that can help make your data collection easier at your institution. There's also an opportunity for program certification. It is certainly not required, but it's something that if your organization is looking for that validation and to have that credential, it's kind of a rewards-based system, you might say, and we're glad to review your materials and provide certification. There's a whole body of how to do that on our website. I hope to see many of you. I think I am going to meet many of you in person at our biannual conference in Seattle this spring. Very excited about that. We also, part of our work as the International Center is to be the hub for the international partnerships in 5 locations around the world, and to proliferate SI research and best practices through our journal and through other means, as well as support conversations through SINet and any other opportunities we get. For example, today, I will almost always say yes. I probably shouldn't announce that very often, but anyway, I always say yes to any opportunity to network and to get connected with SI professionals across the United States and around the world. So some innovations, and I know I'm really keeping track of time. I know SI leaders, we say, are glorified timekeepers, and I don't want to run the conference long by talking too much. So leading while learning is an innovation that we have been working on here at UMKC that's going well. I know that several institutions are working on how to make SI effective through interactive online models. And then I just wanted to shout out, and you can read the list, to some of our partners around the world who are working on applying SI outside of education. So looking at training for employees through an SI model with IKEA, that's our Lund University in Sweden. They're working on that work. Problem solving for the automotive industry at Nelson Mandela in South Africa, and reducing recidivism of prisoners in Australia through the University of Wollongong, again in Australia. So we've got some really exciting things happening around the world. In some ways, UMKC is catching up to some of those things. We have done some high school course liaison. We want to increase that even further and apply that in a high school setting as well. So future innovations, it's visual, the sky's the limit. I think the tenets are firm, the tenets are grounded. We know it works. We have bodies of research that tell us that. We have campus research that tells us that. I encourage all of us to continue to think innovatively about SI. How can we take the concepts that we know work back from Deanna Martin in 1973 and carry those into other industries, other opportunities, create nuances in the ways that we would provide those services so that more students can benefit. So I leave you with blue sky. Blue skies ahead. Maybe that's a Seattle sky, and maybe I'll see you there in Seattle this spring. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this.
Great. Thank you so much, Julie. And folks, chat's probably your best channel to show appreciation. We don't really have the audio applause feature, unfortunately, for this. We so appreciate you taking the time to be with us today and to really, set the tone and get things started with our program.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. So what I will do is go ahead and take us into one of those reveals. And so Kathy Fernandez and myself and others have been talking to Julie and some of her staff, about a partnership between our system and their International Center for SI. Us being such a large system, what can we do to work together to take certain areas of SI to the next level? How can we contribute? How can we partner on certain things? And we also have certain needs being a large system, and what can we do to have regional training here as opposed to expecting to send everybody individually to UMKC. So I'll talk a little bit about regional training coming up, but we do have some planned, and I'll announce that a little bit later in this session. We're also looking at potentially certifying SI trainers within the CSU to meet the ongoing demands that we have with our programs and with our scale. We're looking at large-scale data analysis. We're doing things collectively more and more in the CSU, more on that coming up today as well. And then also working with the International Center. Looking at potentially offering a regional SI conference, whether that's CSU, California systems or larger. We just don't know, and we don't know when, but we want to do something to that effect. And then looking at further opportunities to leverage technology for SI delivery, for tracking, assessment, and dissemination. And some of our campuses have already shared great ideas, and we're trying to pull those together collectively and try and share those out and what those mean.